Hello and welcome to another episode of Adobe Creative Cloud TV. My name is Terry White, and in this episode we're going to take a look at a question I get a lot, and that is, what's the difference between Bridge, Adobe Bridge, and Adobe Photoshop Lightroom, or Lightroom as it's commonly referred to? And there are a lot of differences, and there are a lot of similarities, and that's what I hope to get past in this particular video. Now, first and foremost, I just want you to know I'm not selling you on either one. I really don't care which one you use. This is more of the purpose of this is more just to tell you and show you the differences between the two and when you should use one versus the other. And even in my own case, which one I use for which purposes. So let's go ahead and start with Adobe Bridge. Now, Bridge, I'm in the current version, which is Bridge CC. Bridge actually evolved from something that goes back as far as Photoshop 7, which is the file browser. File browser appeared in Photoshop 7. It was the only product that had it at the time. And of course, once people got the hang of what the file browser could do, they wanted it in other products. They wanted it in Illustrator. They wanted it in InDesign. So rather than build that feature into each individual product, the team decided to make a standalone product that did what the file browser could do and more. And that became Adobe Bridge in CS. So it goes all the way back to right after Photoshop 7, we came out with Adobe Creative Suite, and Creative Suite was the first time Bridge appeared. Now, Lightroom, on the other hand, is specifically for photographers. It's a photography management tool. But anyway, before I get to Lightroom, let's go ahead and jump into Bridge. Now, I have Bridge open, latest version, Bridge CC, and I'm just going to walk you through what Bridge is, what it's for, when you would use it, and how I use it. So first of all, Bridge is a file browser. It's a standalone application. You launch it, and if you're on CC, you actually download it and install it separately. So you go to your Creative Cloud, go to Apps, find Bridge, and install Bridge. Prior to CC, Bridge would get installed automatically with products like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. But now it's a separate install that you do yourself. You do it proactively. Now that you have Bridge installed, how do you navigate to a folder? Well, there's a couple of ways. You can go using the navigation bar here at the top, but another way that I like to do it, here I'm going to go out to the desktop and just grab a folder. Here I'll grab the catalog and just drag that folder right onto the Bridge icon or right into the preview pane. So when I drag it onto Bridge, it will navigate to that folder and show me what's in it. And really, that's how I use Bridge most often. I've got a folder that's either on my hard drive or someone gave me a CD, a thumb drive, or an external hard drive, and I plug it in. I just want to quickly see what's on it. And that's what Bridge is great at, showing you exactly what's on it, all the files, all the folders, and when there's a file type it can preview, it will actually let you preview it. So for example, I've got a document fonts folder. If I open up that, it'll just show me that there are fonts in there. I really don't get to see what those fonts look like, but I know that there's a fonts in that file. If I go back, I've got a links folder, and it's starting to show me all of the images that are in there. Now, those images are of different types. Some are JPEG, some are PSDs, Photoshop documents, some are Illustrator, they could be movies, they could be all types of files, and Bridge would show them to me. And again, if I go back a level, here's an InDesign file. And if I go over to the Preview tab, which of course I can make bigger, if I were to preview this, I would actually be able to thumb through the pages of this file. So that's what Bridge is great at, letting me quickly see what's in a folder and access those files. Now, of course, it can do more than just show me. For example, one of the things that has, from a photography standpoint that's been great about Bridge is that it has Camera Raw built right in. So for example, if I found an image and I wanted to adjust that image in Camera Raw, I could select it. I can go up to my file menu or use a keyboard shortcut and say open in Camera Raw. And it's going to give me a warning because I've got a beta. But anyway, it's going to show me the image in Camera Raw. I can now start making all my non-destructive adjustments that it will apply to the metadata of that image. And again, I'm doing this in Bridge without Photoshop ever having to be opened. So this is what Camera Raw looks like in Bridge. So that's one of the benefits. Another benefit is the ability to preview in different forms. So for example, I'm looking at these images in thumbnail view. I can select one. I can hit the space bar. It will show it to me in a much larger preview. I can use my arrow keys to navigate through these. And again, this is all without having to open this up. And I can hit the space bar again and they will go away. If I select multiple images at the same time and hit the space bar, then I can do the same thing and it will just toggle back and forth between those. And here, let me hit the space bar again to get out of it. And it's just great to be able to do this. Now, if you go ahead and click on one of the images, you'll notice over here that there's metadata and keywords. So I can scroll through and see the metadata about that image, you know, what format it's in, what resolution. I can even add metadata to the image. So if I wanted to put a description in, if I wanted to put a title in, this will be stuff that's actually in the file itself. I can also apply keywords that will make it easier for me to find that photo later. And of course, over here, I have filters. So it's automatically determined what's in that folder, and I can narrow it down to specific things. So if I just want to see the Illustrator files, I can click on just Illustrator. If I want to see just the Photoshop documents, it'll show me just the Photoshop documents. So it's a really, really, really great file browser. And again, I'm never going to try and take that away from it. If that's what you need to do, Bridge is your tool. Now, the other couple of benefits to Bridge is that there is an output module. Now, by the way, the output module did not ship with the CC version of Bridge, but you can go download it and install it. But once you go to the output module, you can, for example, select a bunch of images. And let's say that I wanted to make a PDF of those 4 images and send it kind of like a contact sheet. Well, I can just click on PDF. I can specify my settings. I can give me a preview and it will show me what my PDF would look like. And then I can go ahead and save it out and output it. Again, without having to open up another application, without having to lay that out in another application. This is the kind of stuff that Bridge is great for. Now, I'm going to show you one last thing that I use it for in a few minutes. But let me go to one more thing before that, and that is the beauty behind Bridge. And this is where I'm getting into when to use it. Besides just my quickly wanting to see what's in a folder and looking at all the attributes of the files in that folder, the other time that I use Bridge is when I'm in my design mode, when I'm working in Illustrator or I'm working in InDesign and I'm designing something and I want quick access to a bunch of images that may be in a folder on my hard drive. That's when I'm going to be likely to use Bridge. Now, back to the photographer thing just for a moment. Or maybe you're not a photographer, but you took some pictures. There is, under the File menu, a Get Photos from Camera. So there is even a way to import your images right off your memory card or your camera that's plugged in to whatever folder you designate, and it will then show you that folder in Bridge, because that's all it's doing. It's not importing into Bridge. I get that question all the time. How do I import into Bridge? There really isn't an import. It's just looking at a folder. So after it copies them from your card into the folder that you designate, it will show you that folder in Bridge. That's all it's doing. It's not cataloging. If you delete that folder, Bridge is not going to know anything about it. If you import to an external drive and disconnect that drive, Bridge will never see it again until you plug it back in. So it's only looking at what it can see in real time on your computer. All right, so that's the import. Now let's head over to Adobe InDesign for a moment, because I want to point out that in Photoshop and InDesign, you have something called Mini Bridge. So Mini Bridge is a panel that you can usually access from the window menu, and that will open up a panel that gives you the best features of Bridge right inside the application like Photoshop and InDesign. So for example, if I wanted to place these 3 images into my InDesign layout, rather than me having to switch over to Bridge and go find them, I can do it right here in Mini Bridge and just drag them right in. When I drag them in, I could, for example, drag out a frame. I could use my right arrow key to divide that frame into 2 or 3 and then let go, and it will place all 3 images. And then I can scale them, size them, do whatever I want to do so that they, let's do a fill frame proportionally, so that they look great. And if those images have captions that I've done inside of Bridge, I can even use an InDesign feature to grab those captions. So for example, we can go under the object menu, we can come down to captions, we can go to caption setup, we can tell it how to put the caption in. We want to use the, let's see, we want to use the description here. Click OK, and then one more time we'll go under caption and we'll simply say generate live caption. And it will go grab the captions that were put into the metadata in those images right into InDesign. Lightroom doesn't do any of this. It can't touch that workflow because Lightroom is designed as a photography workflow. Yes, I can put the metadata in and I can export the images out, but this is where Bridge really sings when you're working with other Creative Cloud or Creative Suite applications. That's what it was designed for. That's why there's a mini Bridge. This is what Bridge is really about. Now, let's head back over to Bridge for a moment. And now that we're back to Bridge, here are your breadcrumbs. You can navigate back through your folders to those specific ones you want to look at. And again, I'm looking at other InDesign documents that I can thumb through. And this is great. But this is if you are a designer mostly. And you could use this for photography, yes. And just like you could use Illustrator for page layout or InDesign for page layout, one is better suited than the other. So if you're a designer, Bridge is your tool. If you're a photographer, yes, you can use Bridge. But if you're a photographer, you'd be better suited in Lightroom. Let me show you why. So let's head over to Lightroom. And in Lightroom, it's not a file browser. So it's not looking at a folder and showing me what's in that folder. I actually do an import process first. So whether the images are on a memory card, on my camera, or already on my hard drive, I would do the import. So let's go ahead and do a file import. I'm sorry, actually, we can do the import button here. And once I do that import, I can go find the images. Now, I can also do it just like I did in Bridge. I can go find the images first. Here, let's go to the links. And I can drag that right into Lightroom, just like I did into Bridge. But in this case, instead of it just showing them to me first, it's showing me what it's about to bring in. And I can pick and choose which ones I want to bring in. And notice it defaulted to add because it's not copying anything. It's not doing it from a memory card. It knows those images are already on my hard drive and it's just going to add them into this catalog. I can go a step further and I can say, you know what? I want to put my copyright in for each image because I took those images. If I did, I can even build smart previews so I can look at those images offline if they're on an external hard drive and I take that hard drive away. These are the things that Lightroom excels at. So now that these images are in, and it's building the smart previews at this point, I can begin the process of organizing, adding keywords, all the metadata things that we already saw in Bridge. And if I want to work on these images like I did with Camera Raw, well, that's the Develop module. So if I go to the Develop module, that will take me to this particular image, and I get to work on the Develop module and adjust the things that we saw just like in Camera Raw. Now, here's a difference right off the bat. Although everything on the right-hand side is exactly as it would be in Camera Raw, it's just gray versus white, what I get here that I don't get in Camera Raw or Bridge is a preview. So I'm getting a preview as I hover over all these different presets. So I can see what these presets and what they look like and how they will impact my photography. And that's one of the advantages right off the bat. The other thing is, if we go back to the library menu, now luckily in that particular folder, there were just JPEGs and PSDs and maybe TIFF files. Lightroom is only designed for specific file types. If file types for photography. So JPEGs, TIFF, RAW, the latest version can now do PNG or PNG files, and of course videos. But it's not going to bring in InDesign files. It's not going to bring in Illustrator files because it's a photography tool, not a designer tool. But now that we're here, we can select multiple images, we can output them, we can see them on the map where they were taken or add geolocation, we can make a book, we can make a slideshow, we can make prints, and we can make web galleries. Now you can make web galleries in Bridge as well in the output module, but they're nowhere near as sophisticated as the ones you can do here in Lightroom. And also when we talk about, and by the way, normally when I show people the print module, they get it right away because there's no way you'd be able to do it this easily inside a Bridge. So I selected 4 images and now I want to print them. Well, what I can do here is obviously if I print them now, it's just going to print 1 image per page. And it's even cool that it's showing me that. But if I were to go in and start adjusting this, so if I said, well, give me 2 rows, now it's giving me 2 images per page and it's automatically reoriented the images. If I say give me 2 columns, now it's giving me 4 images per page, and now I only need to print this 1 page. So I have all these different presets that I can use to show me, for example, here's a Lightroom template that will show me multiple pictures, multiple versions of the same picture up. I can go in and say, here's a 2-up greeting card, contact sheet. These are all the kinds of things that let me quickly and easily output these images. And of course I can create my own, I can customize it, I can do whatever I want to do, and faster and easier than I could with for example, a Bridge in Photoshop or a Bridge in InDesign Workflow. So when it comes to workflow for a photographer, that's where Lightroom shines. Now let's go back to the library module in case you're still not convinced, and let me show you one right off the bat. So what I want to do is I want to organize a couple of these photos. I'm going to take this one and this one, and I'm going to put them in a collection. And a collection, think of it like iTunes. You have your iTunes library, and then you have playlist with specific songs. Well, you have your Lightroom catalog, and you have a collection of different pictures. So same concept or metaphor. So in this case, I'm going to do, I'm just going to call this Hawaii. All right, so now that I've got my Hawaii catalog with just those 2 images in it, and keep in mind, I haven't lost anything. I'm back to the same 18 that I started with, and at any given time, I can drag a new one in. This is all about organization. Now, I'm not moving anything around on the hard drive unless I mess with the folder itself, but I'm organizing this, and even if I take those images away on the hard drive, I will still see them in Lightroom, another Lightroom advantage that Bridge doesn't have. Now, what I'd like to do is have different versions of this photo. So what I can do is go under the photo menu. I can create a virtual copy, go back to the original, create another virtual copy. And in this case, I want this copy to be a black and white. So I can head over to the develop module. I can go up to my presets here just quickly because we're just showing a demo here. I can say, make that a black and white using that preset. And of course I could go in, I can adjust it any way I want. And it's all non-destructive. It's not doing duplicates or writing extra copies of the file to the hard drive or any of that. And in this one, I want to crop it. So I want to crop it differently. So I hit the letter X, and I just want to go ahead and make this perhaps the cover of my magazine. And so now that I've done that, I have quickly and easily made 2 versions of the same photo just using virtual copies. And this is all done in metadata, all inside of Lightroom's catalog. So when you combine the ease of organizing your photos, adding metadata, developing, previewing that developing that you're doing, all non-destructively, no progress bars, being able to make the same kinds of adjustments that you make in Camera Raw, being able to output books, slideshow, print, and web modules or web galleries. This is where Lightroom shines for a photographer. And a lot of this can be done in Bridge, but nowhere near with the ease or level of feature set for each of these things that you can do in Lightroom for Bridge. Now, again, if I'm a designer, this is great for photography, but doesn't help me for my other file types, doesn't help me for Illustrator, doesn't help me for InDesign, doesn't help me for my web stuff. That's where I'm going to use Bridge. But if I am a photographer and I need to manage a lot of photos, I need to correct hundreds of photos or thousands of photos at the same time, and I want to preview and I want to do all this stuff and then output all the different versions of it, that's where Lightroom shines. Now, speaking of output, let's say I want to output these 3 photos. I would go up to my file menu and I have an export, because even though I've made all these adjustments live in Lightroom, or they live in the metadata. If I want those actually to be 3 photos, which one of them already is, but if I want those other, let's just say the other 2, just for sanity. If I want those 2 now to be additional versions, then I can say export, and I can go through all my different export presets for how I want those images to be exported. So I can go in and do one for example, a desktop picture. And it's got all my settings already set. What size the desktop picture will be, whether or not it will sharpen it, what resolution, whether or not it will include the metadata or not, and where, of course, it will put those images when it's done. So I'm going to put them on the desktop in a folder called Export. So now when I click Export, that's where you might see a progress bar while it's building those 2 images, and then it shows me those 2 images here. There's the black and white, and there's the cropped one. So the only time I'm really going to see a progress bar in Lightroom is when I'm actually exporting out the photos. Now, my workflow is, if I'm working in InDesign or Illustrator, sometimes Photoshop, then I'm going to use Bridge for design. If I'm working on my photography, hands down, I'm in Lightroom. So I hope that helps you understand the differences between the 2. And if you're a Creative Cloud member, you've got access to both. So again, you pick and choose which one's best for you for what you're doing. It's not a competition as far as Adobe is concerned. We make 2 tools for 2 different purposes that have some overlap. Just like Illustrator and InDesign have some overlap, and Illustrator and Photoshop have some overlap, and Muse and Dreamweaver have some overlap. Lots of tools have some overlap, but at the end of the day, they're targeted at specific audiences to do specific things. So if you're a photographer, I'm going to bet you'll benefit more from Lightroom than you would from Bridge. If you're a designer, I'm going to bet you're going to benefit more from Bridge than you would Lightroom. If you do both, use both, because they're great for what they do. So I hope that helps, and thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. I hope I cleared up some of the confusion as to what they are and when you'd use one versus the other. Thanks, and we'll catch you next time.